Welcome to Data Center Nation. Today I'm speaking with Slawomir Koszolko, who is the Managing Director at Atman. Welcome, Slawomir.
Hello, nice to hear you.
Thank you. I want to ask you some questions about the company, about the organization. Could you please give us a brief history of Atman?
In terms of the colocation, Atman is I think one of the pioneer of the commercial colocation market in Poland. In 2004, the company was taken public by the founders and the management team, and it was the company was public listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange till the end of 21, when it was taken private, in fact, by existing owners. So it was quite a long time. I think one of the important dates in the history of the company was somewhere around 2009, when the founders just split the company into two parts. The one part was the system integration part, was separated from the telco and data center part, and it became two publicly listed companies. So in fact, since 2009, the company is right now a data center, infrastructure as a service, and a telco provider. So this is how the company looks like also now. The balance changes. So right now we are running about 200 PLN revenue business. It's about 45 million in euros on the top line, and more or less 2/3 of the revenue of the top line is broadly a data center business that is mainly colocation, but also infrastructure as a service. This means bare metal service and a virtual private cloud.
If I'm right, you said that the data center market is the largest part of the business now, and is it the fastest growing?
Exactly, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
As I said, the data center, it's on the top line is the two-thirds of our revenue, but a huge part of our connectivity business is also related to data center. Just one example is we are also number 3 internet exchange in Poland. So a huge part. So majority, providing internet access to our colocation and an infrastructure customers is, it's a connectivity business, we provide them. So, but huge majority of telco services are really data center related. Or, just one example, for instance, the Polish market, especially for a B2B and public customers located in Warsaw, very often the customers requires a colocation facility and a connectivity as a one solution, and we can provide that.
How do you see the hyperscale cloud zones and regions developing for Poland?
It's not my perception, it's the fact, because in fact, all big three, when I'm talking about the big three, are already in Poland, or they're in the process of developing, setting up the zones, the regions, the availability zones in Poland. GCP, Google Cloud Platform, just I think 1 month ago, they had a 1-year anniversary of Google Cloud region in Warsaw. So it's here. Azure and Microsoft, they announced that they are setting up a huge region in Warsaw that will not serve only Poland, but also a larger region in Europe. And they are very close to start the services. They're in the process of building. And the biggest one and the third entrance into the Polish market is with a small step. A few months ago, the Amazon Web Services, they announced they are launching a local zone, small local zone systems into 35 countries, among these Poland and in Warsaw. So right now they're in the process of launching the services. I think they're going to launch the services soon. So these are the facts that the big three are already in Poland. Definitely this is not a huge size when we look on the more developed markets, but I think it's just a matter of time that the sizing will follow. the cloud adoption increasing. So if it's increasing, the size of the providers will follow. I think it's also important that Poland is not only 40 million people in almost 40 million people in Polish market. It's treated by all those providers as a sort of a gateway to Central and Eastern Europe.
And what about cloud connectivity, onboarding onto the big public cloud?
We are already the partner of Google Cloud, as we can provide the connectivity to the Google Cloud directly to Polish region, of course, and for the rest of the Google Cloud and the remaining to Amazon, to Azure, to other platforms, we are doing that with our partners. But generally, the ultimate goal is to have all big three players directly possible to directly provide the cloud connectivity to the public network.
In terms of the digitalization of the Polish economy, we touched on this earlier, but in terms of in the short to medium term, next 3 to 5 years, do you see public, private, and established companies and organizations accelerating their digital transformation, accelerating the move behind that? How digital ready is the Polish economy? How digital ready will it be through companies such as Atman providing the infrastructure layer?
Generally, when you look on the global numbers, we say the adoption, for instance, of cloud, it's not as high as in the Western Europe, but there is no way that going this direction. So if the adoption is small, I see the adoption rate increases. So there will be a growth. There's a different situation in different, for instance, industries. But just one example, I believe that, for instance, Polish financial sector is far more digitalized than in most of the Western Europe. And adoption of fintechs in Poland, everybody, for instance, like Visa and MasterCard, where they're launching new services, Poland is a test ground. Because the adoption of, for instance, in terms of the finance institution, I think Poland is ahead of retail finance. Poland is far ahead of the Western market. For instance, I don't know, just an example, the Revolut and the Klarna, they are not so successful on the Polish market because the traditional Polish banks are much more digital and are much more mobile than the traditional Western big banks. So in some industries, we are even ahead of the market. So that's the situation. In terms of the public, when we look on the other parts of Europe, like UK, France, Germany, or Southern Europe, we don't have to be ashamed. I think we are far ahead of them. But I would say guys, just focus on digitalization and adding the value, but trust the infrastructure guys who will provide secure place for your services. Don't spend money on brick and mortar and power. Focus on what really is important, hardware and software and the services. And we can provide secure location for those services. And this is and this is the message I'm bringing to the public sector. Don't be afraid.
Fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic way to end it, I think, Slawek. Thank you so much for that and for your time today. And I think some really important, clear messages. And thank you for joining us on this Data Center Nation interview.
Thank you. I was happy to share.
Thanks.